Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. What do you have to say? What have you learned about Latin culture? Anything? No.
Nothing. Not from Modern Family.
You wish. Do you have anything new to report this week?
I saw Crimson Peak, and I saw Bridge of Spies.
Oh, dear son, you have been busy.
Yes, it was one of those weeks.
Oh, my goodness. And report, briefly.
I wasn't a huge fan of either of them. Yeah, Crimson Peak, I was like,
I hear Crimson Peak
like,
is just not scary. I hear it's a visual treat, but it's not really a horror movie.
It's visually stunning. It is. But even in the sense of the horror movie, it's like, I feel like I've seen it before, and I feel like I've seen it done better, even by Guillermo del Toro.
Well, that's not great.
No, and, it's just like, I don't know. I was really, really disappointed by that one. As beautiful as it was to look, I just did not get into the movie itself. And Bridge of Spies was a good movie. It's a good story. It's an interesting story, but it's not one that really, made me want to go see it again or anything like that. I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad to know that bit of history, and I can check it off my list.
Wow. I don't even know what to make of this.
I know.
Tom Hanks was in that movie.
Tom Hanks was in it.
It's a
Steven
Spielberg
directed
film.
it. I blame it on the fact that John Williams didn't do the music.
Oh, well, maybe, because he almost died. I don't know if you know. A couple of weeks back, the AFI reported him as almost dead and winner of their award. No, it's not true.
You're a terrible person.
Well, I am really sorry to hear that. Super sorry.
Yeah, I feel like we told the kids we're going to take them to Goosebumps, and then for one reason or another, we just didn't end up finding the time to do it.
So you went you went to see 2 movies instead of taking your children to Goosebumps. I see that now. I get it.
Exactly. But when you have parents' night outs, you have to take the opportunity to go do something. But I feel like I would have enjoyed Goosebumps more than either of those films.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that on all accounts.
I'll get over it. I'm a big boy.
I hope so. Or it's going to be a long night.
Yes, indeed.
I have seen nothing. It's been a solo dad week, and therefore I have nothing to say or to add to this conversation.
I guess the other thing we should report is we both fought tooth and nail to get tickets to Star Wars.
Oh, good God, man. That was bananas.
That was nuts. I guess, it's going to be debuting on 390 IMAX screens across the country or across North America. And at one point in there, it's actually going to be on every IMAX screen in the country for a short period of time. And it made a whopping. This is almost 2 full
60
months
days
before
out from
the movie opens. Yeah, it grossed $6.5 million when it opened on its ticket sales. Vastly beating the other 3 movies that were kind of had a 3-way tie as far as advanced ticket sales, which were Dark Knight Rises, The Hunger Games, and The Avengers. Each of those made around $1 million from advanced IMAX sales. This one, $6.5 million. Shut down Fandango, movietickets.com, pretty much every movie.
That was my problem.
Sales site.
I was bouncing back and forth between Fandango, Movie Tickets, Cinemark, and Regal, and they were all down. All server-side errors, all we cannot handle the Star Wars enthusiasm. All we were not ready for this. Who would possibly be ready for this? This is insane. That's what they just should have put on their 500 errors.
I think Alamo is the only theater that I've heard that has actually come out to verbally say, we're sorry, we just weren't ready.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
On behalf
no other
of
chain
the,
has actually
yeah,
done that. But
really
thank you, Alamo.
Thank
we
you.
love you.
Yes, for being honest.
Yes.
Well, you got tickets, and you're going Friday?
I'm going Thursday night. And then I'm going to go, that's just me and my son, because my daughter has dance recital, and then the whole family's going to go on Sunday.
I couldn't get into our IMAX theater on Thursday night. It was so by the time the site came back up, it was sold out. And so my challenge is just because the whole family wants to go, and they would not let me go by myself. So I imagine I could have gotten in Friday, but we're actually seeing it Saturday morning. And that stinks because that means not only do I have to stay relatively spoiler-free leading up to the release of the movie, then I have to just not speak to humans for 2.5 days.
That's right. I'll be texting you and
we have a
sending you
show.
messages.
Well, we're not going to be able to do our show now, is what you're saying. Because we record on Thursday nights. Now you're going to do it from the lobby?
That's right. While I'm in line.
All right. I'm done with that. Shall we tell the people where we're from?
Where are we from?
Next Reel on rashpixel.fm. Everybody, I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hello, hello.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, the third in our Horrible Children Halloween Spectacular series with Jack Clayton's 1961 film, The Innocents. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show on iTunes or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you've ever seen that guy, you know, that one guy in the window laughing at you, really laughing at you, you should definitely head over to the Instagram.com/TheNextReel and play The Next Reel's Instagram #PonyPrize #GuessTheMovieChallenge.
And with that, let's head on over to Scotland and check in with Stephen Smart, who's not entirely innocent.
Hey guys, this week's movie was The Age of Adeline with Blake Lively and Harrison Ford. This week's winner was at Enbergloff, who nailed it on Image 3 and is entered into the Pony Prize hat for a second time. As always, a new challenge starts Friday, so thanks guys and see you later.
You know, we have some follow-up.
Yes.
We have some follow-up, and I don't even know what to make of this follow-up. I don't know if, so it's a Blot Spot. Ben Lott, dear friend of the show, wrote in with his coverage of Village of the Damned. And our ranks came out pretty close. I feel like he agrees with me, but I feel like it was verbatim from you.
Oh. Village of the Damned was half of a really intriguing movie. I liked the mystery of the sleeping town, but what really impressed me was the drama surrounding a town full of women with unexpected pregnancies. I think they could have done a lot with that, but instead, they rushed through the pregnancies, and once the births happened, the movie got progressively less interesting. The story suddenly became a bad episode of The Twilight Zone. It was like the movie lost all emotional impact as soon as these emotionless kids arrived. I no longer had any investment in the film and just shook my head over the lousy kid actors and the silly brick wall plan. Your rank 145 out of 206, my rank 158 out of 206.
All right, you're right. It's pretty verbatim.
Yeah.
I think we agreed.
Yeah, I think that you guys pretty much agreed.
I feel like he was even maybe more enthusiastic about the beginning of the film than I was. But
maybe.
I think we really agreed. Yeah. You're right.
Pretty eye to eye.
All right.
I think I, of the three, liked the film more.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about Star Wars and the bananas box office that this movie has 2 months out from launch. What's going on in the box office, Andy?
I don't know. It's crazy.
Some things are not doing well that really should.
Yeah, nobody is going to see The Walk.
And that, you've seen it.
I really enjoyed it. The whole family enjoyed it.
I did too. It made good. It absolutely made good on its promise to be a family adventure. I thought it was great. I told you what my daughter said. Did I tell you this on the show?
Yeah, I think so.
There was not 1 minute that was bad in this movie. Not 1 minute. It was great. And nobody's seeing it.
It's only made $9.5 million since it opened, which is piddly. It's a $35 million production budget for this thing. And which is, relatively cheap for a big Robert Zemeckis sort of movie. But it's only made $9.5 million since it opened, and now it's nearly 3 weeks now.
That is such a shame. And it's worldwide, right? We're not waiting on any place else to launch?
No, worldwide, that's $9.5 million just domestic. Internationally, it's at 17.4. So all told, right now it's at just under 27 million. But still, yeah. I mean, think of the marketing and everything else.
Terrible.
It's going to be a box office flop. And, Crimson Peak, I mentioned that, and Bridge of Spies, those both opened this weekend, and neither did as well as people were expecting. I mean, neither of them broke 20 million. I think Crimson Peak came in at 13 million, Bridge of Spies about 15 million. Yeesh. I mean, it's just, it was a kind of a rough weekend. I think Goosebumps is the only one that actually really did well. So yeah, it's strange.
This was this was opening weekend for Goosebumps, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So opening weekend at 121 million for the weekend.
Right.
That's not a bad open.
No.
The Martian's definitely holding in there.
Oh yeah, it's doing well. It's been about 2.5 weeks right now, and it's about 145
this week
million about. Yeah. No, total.
Total, yeah. What do you think that is? You think people are really just waiting for some of these movies for VOD?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those weird things. It's like they're good movies. They're worth seeing. I mean, The Walk. I mean, I can't imagine that many people saw the documentary. I mean, which is a brilliant documentary. I love the documentary, but just knowing the American public, I just don't think it's a huge documentary crowd. I mean, I think people enjoy documentaries, but I think the vast majority of people prefer watching narrative films.
Okay.
And so I can't blame it on the fact that, well, everybody saw the documentary already, so then it's just like, well, were people just not interested in the story? I don't know. And then this is the argument that always falls to Hollywood. Oh, nobody's going to see those movies. They want more Ant-Man and Jurassic World and Guardians of the Galaxy and, these big blockbuster movies and the big easy genre movies, the fun ones, not the Crimson Peaks, but they want those easy to please mass market genre movies. And then we get less of these other ones. Yeah. I mean, this Bridge of Spies had like 4 different big studios at the front of it as far as the companies that were behind it. Clearly, nobody wanted to pay for a little movie about, spies in World War II.
Yeah, yeah. That's too bad.
Yeah.
I think we should probably do trailers. Okay, so I'm going to go first.
Do it.
Because I feel like I'm doing one that is more of an honor to our series.
I think that's fair to say.
Naughty Children. Coming to us from director William Brent Bell and writer Stacey Menear and actress Lauren Cohan and Rupert Evans, Ben Robson. Lauren Cohan, of course, is one of my very favorites from The Walking Dead. The boy. Nanny is shocked that her new English family's boy is actually a life-sized doll. After violating a list of strict rules, disturbing events make her believe that the doll is really alive. It's a trope that we have seen. It harkens back to great films like Gremlins, where we have, the list of rules. Do not feed it after midnight. Do not get it wet. In this case, it's don't leave him alone. Don't forget to feed him. Don't cover his face. And she proceeds to do all of those things. And lo and behold, there she is, alone in the house with a creepy Pinocchio that is out to get her. It is really creepy. It looks like just the kind of thing I probably won't see in the theater, but I bring this trailer up because it's a clever implementation. I like the laugh that she gets when she first sees that after the big build-up, when she first sees that the film is, or that the boy that she's been hired to nanny is actually a marionette of sorts. So that made me happy. I will say that the director, William Brent Bell, I don't know much of his work, but I will say I don't even remember why I did it. The very first movie I ever purchased on iTunes VOD, when the store went open, one of the launch movies was Stay Alive from 2006, which was the movie about a group of teens that would go to an online video game, and they would have to stay alive in this video game or they die in real life. And it was really not a good movie.
Sounds like a winner.
Yeah, it was not good. But I was able to download it, and that felt magical, which made the movie a little bit better. I've never watched it again, but I own it. Anyway, what do you think? Ones.
I think it looks really creepy, and I just absolutely love it. I totally agree with you about Cohen. I think she's great in The Walking Dead. She's one of my favorites. And seeing her in this trailer just made me thrilled. And then watching the trailer was it falls for all those tropes, breaking all the rules and everything. But I mean, what would you do? You're in a situation where it's like, oh, don't ever forget to feed the boy. But it's a doll. It's so nonsensical. So of course you're not going to follow the rules because it just seems absurd. I don't know. It's right up my alley. I really want to see this one.
Well, you can, Andy. January 22nd, 2016. You could take a friend or your son. He looks kind of like the boy if you make him sit real still. He's so cute.
Which is impossible.
And kind of shiny. So I think it's going to be great as a family film for you. That's it.
There you go.
What's yours?
Mine is He Never Died, which is a kind of an awkward name. I'm not completely convinced that I like the title, but the trailer itself looks just like so much fun. And it is a Henry Rollins vehicle, which we just don't ever really see too much of. Henry Rollins is a very interesting guy for people who are familiar with him. I mean, he certainly has been in popping in and out of a lot of TV shows and stuff like that. And I mean, he is in stuff, but this looks just great. I mean, he plays a character who looks kind of he plays Jack. I mean, he's this guy who seems like, is he a vampire? Is he, just kind of an immortal? What is it about this guy? He's a social outcast. He's thrust out of his comfort zone when the outside world bangs on his door and he can't contain his violent past. As IMDb says, the banging on his door is the fact that he actually has a daughter, and he now has to deal with the fact that he's got this daughter that he just found out about. And then, of course, his daughter gets kidnapped and tortured, and he's got to go save her. But as it turns out, like, he is... somebody asks him, how old are you? And he's like, I don't know, but I'm in the Bible, if that helps at all. Which is great. It's just great. And so, according to the Bible verse, it sounds like he's probably Cain.
Also, according to the trailer.
And I don't know. Every time I watch that, I clearly miss that. No, I just must miss that every time I watch the trailer. I don't know why. But anyway, yes, it looks crazy. It looks bloody. It looks like he's having a very fun time as this guy who's just forced to keep living as much as he doesn't want to. And it just looks like a wild ride. And the fact that Henry Rollins is in it just makes me happy. And it's kind of billed as a comedy drama horror. And I don't know what to say. It's been playing at a lot of festivals, but it's going to open December 18th. So it's up against the big dog come December. Nobody's buying its tickets 2 months in advance, but it doesn't mean I don't want to see it.
I think you should have also mentioned that it co-stars Boo Boo Stewart.
Oh, yes. Yes, I don't know who that is, but... but I love the name.
Yeah, he played the coveted role of Seth Clearwater in Twilight Saga Eclipse.
Of course.
And Breaking Dawn 1 and 2. Old Boo Boo. The thing I like about this trailer, and I we watch a lot of trailers. I love this trailer because it is a little bit of the mini movie, right? I mean, it's not like on the Star Wars side of things where they give you enough and you don't really know what the story is unless you're really digging into it and researching kind of the news from the universe. It doesn't give you the movie. It gives you the visuals. It's exciting, and the music. It's emotional, and you're brought in. Versus the trailers that actually give you the whole movie. Like this one is nicely balanced, right in between. I feel like it starts and we get the social outcast part, the little bit of the sociopath part, but then we actually get the we get the supernatural bit, and we get to see him get shot with a shotgun in this Red Band trailer, and we get to see him live through. We get to see him shot between the eyes in the head. And he stands up and obviously lives through it. It's that part for me, like being able to see the whole thing. I think it was a really well done trailer for this movie. It didn't give away so much that it made me not want to see it. It gave away just enough for me to say I want to see a lot more of that. I am excited to see Henry Rollins in this film. It's like it was made for him. I love it.
Boo Boo Stewart has 12 projects that are have been announced, are filming, or are in pre-production or post-production.
He's a hunk. He is a bona fide hunk.
He is a busy boy. He was Warpath in X-Men Days of Future Past.
Yes, he was. And none of the 12 things that he's doing are the Maze Runner. He was like die cast for the Maze Runner, and he's not in the Maze Runner. I guess they had him in Twilight.
That's right.
Well, I thought, why not go out tonight and wander about in my bare feet, which was a shocking thing to do, wasn't it?
There has never been a ghost story created especially for the adult moviegoer until The Innocents. Do they ever return to possess the living? 20th Century Fox, which presented Deborah Kerr in Heaven Knows Mr. Allison, and such outstanding motion picture immortals as Snake Pit, Gentleman's Agreement, and Peyton Place, now gives you The Innocents. Based on the Henry James chiller of macabre evil. Brilliantly adapted for the screen by William Archibald and Truman Capote.
They never return to possess the living.
You can see. You must. I hate you.
The Innocents, produced and directed by Jack Clayton, the man who directed Room at the Top, turned into fearful reality by the magnificent performance of Miss Deborah Kerr, with Michael Redgrave as the uncle, co-starring Peter Wingard, Meggs Jenkins.
I saw him staring. Who, miss? The same man, the man on the tower. The tower? But now, just now, he was staring past me into the house as if he were hunting someone. Oh, what's he like, miss? Oh, he had dark, curling hair and the hardest, the coldest eyes. Is he? Would you say he was very handsome? Oh, yes, handsome and obscene.
The Innocents, Andy. 1961 British supernatural gothic horror film. Directed and produced by Jack Clayton. Stars Deborah Kerr.
Carr. I feel like we're at Sleepless in Seattle. Deborah, is it Carr or Kerr? Kerr. Or Care, according to you. But I hear she likes it when you say that.
Well, she does. I mean, she and I, we were very close at one time. I haven't spoken to her for ages. Is it really Carr?
It is Carr.
For real?
It is Carr.
I don't think I've ever said it. I don't think I've ever actually said I've read it. Never said it. All right. Michael Redgrave. Mags Jenkins. Are these not what you expected?
Oh dear.
You did it.
It's on me.
This is based on Turn of the Screw by Henri James. It's the story of a governess who comes to the house and she finds out both of the children that she's watching are mannequins. Not true. That's not a true part. I had never seen this film, and you added it to the list. You said we have to see this film. I had never seen it, and it is, to date, in our series of horrible children, it is my favorite.
Good. That makes me so happy.
Yes. I thought that it would make you happy.
Yes, this is one of my favorites. This is probably a top 100 film for me. I just find it so unsettling and creepy and filmed so beautifully. It's just so visually interesting to always look at. And the story is so ambiguous. I just love kind of the weird, freakiness of the whole thing. It really just kind of is really frightful.
It's yes. What I love so much about it, so the story is, as we said, there's this. The setup is a little bit boggling. The governess is being hired by this wealthy industrialist in London. He says, I've just inherited these two children, my niece and nephew. I want nothing to do with them. Nothing at all. I want you to go. They're at my country house, which is not really a house as much as it is a castle.
I want a country house like that.
Yes, a country village. And I want you to go there, go to the country house, and I want you to take responsibility of the children. I do not ever want to hear about the children or see the children. I don't have time for it. And at some point, he talks about how his life is, I guess, weirdly illicit. There are things that he does that he can't say to children, which I wanted to hear more about. They never really dive down that particular well. And so off she goes. She's a first-time governess, and she gets in a carriage, and she goes to the country estate, and she takes over the children, and they start with this beautiful life until she's with one child, and it's fantastic, and the child is perfect and cherubic and polite, and then she gets a letter that says the other child's coming back from boarding school. We don't want him back at the boarding school, so you can have him and take him back. We don't want him. He's a danger to other children. And so now we have both of these children, these perfect children, and so begins the mystery. Are the children really horrible? Are the children somehow possessed? Or is the governess seeing things and it turns out there's nothing going on at all?
Right. Is she going mad?
Is she going mad? Oh my goodness. It was beautiful.
Well, and I think of another very interesting element of the script that is worth mentioning is that she's a vicar's daughter, and kind of I mean, Deborah Kerr's playing it, and she was nearly 40, so technically, if it were in the Victorian era, it would be a little bit of an old maid, even though I think in the original story, she was supposed to be like 20 or something. But anyway, she's kind of a country vicar's daughter, so she's not really completely kind of tuned into the world or raising kids or anything. And so her interpretation of some of the things that are happening, seen through the eyes of a vicar's daughter, is like, I've got to fix this, and I've got to, use my tools to smite the evil. And it becomes very interesting as you start looking at it and figuring out, is she really seeing these things, or is it all just in her head and she's turning it into something because of that upbringing that she had?
I'm glad you brought that up. I think the way the film deals with religion and sort of fetishizes symbols, religious symbols, and sort of bastardizes religious symbols in the film, I think is fascinating. The use of statuary as haunting figures, broken statues, that are broken in kind of horrendous ways, I think is really beautiful, and it gives you that to me really builds this sense of intensity of things are about to get freaky on this around here.
Yeah, it's so disturbing because there are so many shots where you see a figure standing in the back, like in the backyard or whatever, and it's like, oh, that's just one of those freaky statues that they have in the back.
Yes.
It's not really a ghost. It's just this statue, and those are so terrifying in their own right.
Yes, yeah, until it's a thing that's actually standing on a roof or appearing to you in the reflection. It is really haunting. So how would you like to start talking about it, pulling it apart? Where do you, as the expert in The Innocents?
I think that the story and the script is a great place to start, and just kind of the nature of her character and what she is, kind of what she's seeing. So, I mean, maybe we'll start with the script and Miss Giddens.
The script was written by William Archibald and Truman Capote.
Capote, I hear, is how he likes you to say it.
Capote.
Oh, Capote.
Yeah.
Capote. No, and actually, William Archibald wrote the play. This was actually a play after the Henry James novel in 1898. Then William Archibald wrote the play 1950, and he did the first draft of the script, and it was not to Jack Clayton's liking very much. He felt that Clayton felt that Archibald did not take it out of the staginess of it. It was really still just kind of trapped into the interior location. And so,
then it would have been the bad seed.
And then it would have been the bad seed. Right. And but Mervyn LeRoy would have loved the script. But right. Clayton really wanted to break it out a little bit. He talked to some friends and ended up with Capote, who Clayton said contributed 90% of what's in the script. And there's so much stuff going on in the script and a lot of just great bits. Like, you've got that just fantastic line of dialogue when Miss Giddens is talking to Flora about the fact that Miles is going to be coming home from his boarding school, and Flora is kind of not paying attention, and she looks down. She's like, "Oh, look at the lovely spider! It caught a butterfly," and it's just like a great little moment for Flora, and it's also such interesting little subtext that's going on, and it's also really freaky because you're like, this kid is off. There's something just not quite right here.
So not quite right, because then she starts like tapping it.
Right, tapping the butterfly, like, you get it, spider.
It is. It's a butterfly. It's like, looks like it's struggling. Like there's a great special effect there.
Yes, absolutely.
I think you're exactly right. And Truman Capote himself, just not a well dude. This felt very much like he was channeling some of his own inner demons. Don't you think?
And from what I understand, he was actually working on this while he was dealing with the In Cold Blood story. So that was in his head while he was doing this.
There you go. This definitely feels like a Truman Capote therapy session.
Interestingly, there's one bit that he apparently didn't like. He was very disappointed in himself. The bit when Miss Giddens sees the ghost of Miss Jessel sitting in the classroom up at the desk, crying. And then she goes up to it, and, the cinema trick, if she goes up there and then all of a sudden she's not there anymore. But she looks down and she sees the teardrop on the little chalkboard, and she wipes the teardrop. He was very upset with himself that he put that teardrop in there because he felt it was too much of a physical example saying the ghosts were real, and it didn't leave that ambiguity that they had been balancing so well through the rest of the script. So apparently he was very bothered that he wrote that in there and he left it.
Okay, first-time viewer comment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that was the ghost.
Oh.
Like, I thought it was Mrs. Giddens. Like, I thought she woke up, she got up there and was like in such a place of terror that she might have interpreted it as the ghost was real, but like the way I probably went more down the road of interpreting this as a cerebral thriller, and that so much of this was going on in Mrs. Giddens' head too, that I felt like she was coming into touch with her own damage, and that tear was more than likely hers.
Oh, I like that. I mean, I think that's a good way to look at that. And I think if Truman had thought of that, then he would have been okay with it.
So I got Truman's back, is what I'm saying.
Excellent.
So I think that the pieces that felt particularly Capote to me, the weird sexual undertones, right?
Mm-hmm.
The weird Freudian undertones.
I want that ring.
It was very greedy. The relationship that Miles has with Miss Giddens, particularly as captured in their goodnight kiss, which I think is that apparently was not in the book or play, and it's a really erotic, much too erotic of a kiss, of a goodnight kiss, as she is putting him to bed, and he reaches up and grabs her head and kisses her on the lips, and is there for a long time in a very adult kiss, which was one of the more intensely kind of horrifying moments of the film, just because of the duration, the length of time they focus on it, the fact that how wildly inappropriate it is, the fact that she doesn't pull away quickly enough, the fact that he is so aggressive, and we should say, played by Martin Stevens. We talked about him last week, and you said, don't talk about him too much because we're going to talk about him next week, and man, did you nail it. This was the movie we should have watched, just to leave the other thing, Village of the Damned. This is the movie to watch with him in it. He's incredible. He's great.
Yes.
And so this particular sequence really showcases, what this young kid was able to channel in creating a really inappropriately terrifying sequence.
Yeah, a sequence that also really pissed off the executives at 20th Century Fox, because it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't in the script or anything, and they were very unhappy that it was in there. But I don't know how Clayton managed to keep it in there, but he did, and it adds so much to the intensity of this relationship between her and this child, mainly him, but also Flora. But there's this incredible intensity because she is feeling like it's this spirit of the former landscaper who is possessing this child, who's making him do these things. And we don't know, is he really innocent? Is she really innocent? Who is really innocent here? And what's going on? And it adds this psychological layer to the story that really makes you question what's going on here. And it's just it really adds to this unsettling nature that this whole film carries through.
So, what is your sense of what Peter Quint did to Miles?
Well,
does that make sense? Because the way there's a montage in here where we have the dancing and the doves fly away, and
right,
it's all over, and it felt very much to me like we're watching. This is a visual metaphor of Miles losing his innocence at the hands of this man. That there is some sort of like inappropriate sexual contact, something that we're supposed to get out of this, that their relationship was untoward in some way, and that part of the haunting, and I'm using heavy air quotes there, is Miles sort of internalizing and coming to more aggressive terms with what has happened to him.
Well, and that's a very interesting montage sequence to bring up. It's fascinatingly assembled as far as the way that the editor built it, using a bunch of different images, layering them on top of each other. I think at some point there's even like 4 images all kind of blending together.
And you know what this reminded me of, right?
What's
I don't want to interrupt you, but I think you know what it reminds me of.
I don't.
Well, the complexity of the edits of Under the Cherry Moon, which I think you were quite a fan of, right?
Absolutely. That's absolutely what I was going to talk about.
You were saying
the black and white montage of that film, hand with the kiss in the hand.
Over the kiss.
Yes.
Does it make you wonder, why did they do the innocence in black and white? We had to ask that question before. You were saying?
Yes, all these questions that come up. But it's a very interesting montage because it does show these things that are happening. We see Flora dancing with Miss Jessel. We see Quint kind of walking off hand in hand with Miles, walking away from us. And as I recall, Miles kind of looks back over his shoulder like he's kind of looking back to us, as he is potentially going off to lose his innocence. But then we also are looking at Miss Giddens as she's laying there and her eyes are open. It's not really a dream. It's not really visions. My sense of it is it's her interpretation of, or her imagining of what could have happened. And so I don't know if anything, and this is why I really love the way they played with the ambiguity of the story. You don't really know if what we're seeing are images of what happened. Did Quint really take Miles back and do something to him to kind of corrupt his innocence? Or is this all really in Miss Giddens' head, and she's creating these scenarios of things that she thinks happened, and now that vicar's daughter in her is going to try to get rid of that evil and help exorcise that demon of Quint out of this young boy. And it really plays with your mind quite a bit.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That is an interpretation I hadn't. I was just going off of it as a metaphor, but it totally fits with the way I look at Miss Giddens' character. That she, she is so troubled. She's troubled enough by the whole experience to leave the tear in the schoolroom. That it really fits. That this is what builds to that level of intensity for her. That she really is going mad as a result of manufacturing the story of these children and the story of their loss of innocence at the hands of these people.
Yeah, and I do think it plays quite a key element, the fact that we see her during that with her eyes open. It's not just her with her eyes closed. It's like her eyes are open. It's like she's almost deliberately manufacturing these images to think about them as, I find that a very interesting directorial choice and story choice.
That's a really good catch. Her eyes are open. That's a great catch. You're right. She's definitely processing something there.
Right.
Not just experiencing it. Fascinating.
And I think that, it goes, this is another Capote element that I think he integrated into the script so well, this level of decay that is kind of just all over the place. We see every time somebody bumps one of the roses, these white roses that seem to be everywhere, petals fall off. They're just always like falling apart. And we see there's that really creepy moment when she's in kind of the rose garden looking for Flora, and she kind of pulls these roses apart to see this little Cupid statue there. And there's this great this is a little clip of the script from Capote. A stone Cupid, its head tilted back, its infantile, toothless mouth widely smiling at her. In each of its outstretched hands, it clasps another hand, but these other hands are broken at the wrists. Like a small black tongue, a beetle appears. Just a great visual of this creepy little beetle crawling out. We see, this dead dove that, or this pigeon or dove, I don't know what it is, that Miles is keeping under his pillow. They're dunking the turtle. He throws the turtle. She's dunking it for a while, and then he throws the turtle through the window. There's always this kind of decaying nature and this corruption of nature throughout the story that ties in so nicely with this decay of her mental state. Potential.
Right.
It's either the decay of her mental state or the decay of the children's mental state by these spirits.
Well, yeah, and back to the statue, that it was that statue that caught my eye in particular, which, of the child holding the broken hands, as if the hands are coming, and they're upturned hands. It's if the hands are coming to coddle the child, and the child has grabbed them and torn them asunder, And of course, we know that this was just part of a larger statue that is broken apart over age and decay. But what it means in terms of the relationship, particularly of Miles to Miss Giddens, is so much more apparent, on that second viewing for me. Just, man, I get it. That here she was trying to be a caretaker, and here he was, sort of exercising his own demons at her expense.
Yeah. The fact that Deborah Kerr, I mean, I haven't seen a ton of Deborah Kerr films, but the ones I've seen, I always like her. I think that she's just such a great screen presence. And I think it's very interesting that just a few years before this, she was another very famous governess in The King and I.
Yes, she was.
She's just a fascinating actress, and I feel like she's one of those actresses that I really need to see more of her films. I need to see like Black Narcissus. I've seen From Here to Eternity, which I think is just fantastic. But gosh, there's just so many out there.
The Hucksters.
Haven't seen that one. I've seen Heaven Knows Mr. Allison.
Yeah.
A little John Huston.
Yeah, a little Robert Mitchum.
Mm-hmm.
A little Clark Gable.
Yep. And Fair to Remember. I've seen that one.
Yep. Well, you're doing all right.
Yeah, but there's a lot. I mean, she's been in, 53 credits between TV and film. So she was a very busy actress, and one who I feel like I need to see more of her output.
Well, she was terrific in this film, and I think it's interesting when you look at the title of the film. Really, we're talking about the initially you think about the children, right? The innocents. They are the physical manifestation of the innocence, but really, everything in here is about firsts, right? I mean, it's first sexual encounter, it's first, experiences growing up as manifested through the children. It's her first time being a maternal figure, right? I mean, they make a big deal about that, and this is very much her losing her innocence as a matron, as much as it is the children growing up, and I think I think she plays that level of kind of innocence really well, and you can tell she's the nanny who's going to spoil the kids for a while. I kept thinking to myself, man, I am never going to allow her to babysit. When it's bedtime, it is bedtime. You go to bed. You don't play hide and seek in a haunted attic ever.
Oh yes, that's another great scene when he starts like choking her.
Yes.
God, it's crazy.
Let's talk a little bit about the visual identity of the film. The film starts on black. I thought it was broken.
You weren't the only person.
I immediately went to Amazon and wrote a scathing review. This film did not turn on for 43 seconds, and so I turned it off and I did not watch the rest. What's your sense of the open?
I think it is perfect. It sets up the mood so well. The creepy, creepy song, "Oh Willow Waly," that's kind of sung by a child's voice, is haunting. It creates this mood. It lets you know that, yes, this is a 20th Century Fox film, but it's not one that is going to be just overtly, hey, you're watching a movie here. Check out the 20th Century Fox logo. It really just kind of lets you settle into the mood before it even shows you the 20th Century Fox logo. Very smart filmmaking. And I don't know. This is just one of those things. It's like, why don't more filmmakers do this? I know we have to have those logos at the front and everything, but why not give us a little bit of a moment right before that just kind of gives us a good sense of this, of just kind of the feel that we're going to have. It works really well here. And that song is so haunting. And I have been singing it ever since, or at least humming the tune. It's like, gosh, that is the most morbid thing to be kind of walking around humming.
It is. And it's, what is it's a story. Did you look at the lyrics?
I did. Yeah. Oh, Willow Waly. Yeah. It's, I can't remember. We lay my love and I beneath the weeping willow, but now alone I lie and weep beside the tree, singing "Oh Willow Waly" by the tree that weeps with me, singing "Oh Willow Waly" till my lover returns to me. We lay my love and I beneath the weeping willow, but now alone I lie. Oh willow I die. Oh willow I die.
And all of this is sung by Flora, the young girl.
Right.
And again, like, talk about a great open, a great way to subversively introduce us to this girl losing her innocence. What possible business does she have singing this song if it weren't for her experience with these adults doing illicit things?
And that's, going back to the spider, what business does she have? I know children are curious and stuff, but she has this gleeful interest in the morbid.
Yep.
And this song is a good example of that.
Anybody else in particular that stands out to you?
I mentioned the editing briefly with the montage and stuff. Jim Clark did a great job with the editing. I really enjoy what he did both with the editing, like the montage and the dissolves. There are so many dissolves. Like every time we're going from sequence to sequence, there's always a dissolve, and they're really slow dissolves, like almost creating ghostly images as you go super slow from one to the next, which I think lends to that atmospheric ghost story feel all the way through.
Can you, think back, will you? When was the last time you edited film?
College.
I was there.
That's right.
It's an enormous pain. It's a pain in the rear to edit film. It really is. That is what I was thinking of the entire time I was watching this film, because you're right. It is every sequence. It's not just a slow dissolve. It's a wildly complex dissolve that tells its own narrative in 4 to 5 seconds. There is a narrative in like every dissolve, because it's not just one sequence of frames over another sequence of frames very, very slowly. There are layers of images upon images. I can't imagine the level of just introspection that he has to bring to every one of these sequence transitions. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is. Taken out of context of the actual kind of scary ghost story, it's very beautiful the way that these edits move. The one that really sticks in my mind right now is the one that goes into that rose garden, where you dissolve out from, I think they were in the room, and then you dissolve to this close-up of this white rose. It's just this beautiful white rose, and then it's immediately dissolving already out of that to kind of the wall of roses as we then see Miss Giddens in there.
Yeah, I couldn't tell on some of these, just having not watched it enough times yet, but I sort of feel like there are some that he teases you with. Like he starts a dissolve and then pulls it back and then introduces a new image, and then eventually you get there. But it just feels like such a kind of a dance with us, kind of drawing you into the next sequence. I just thought that part in particular, Jim Clark's work was really, really great.
And speaking to what you were talking about last week with the sound, I think Jim Clark did a really, really mesmerizing job with the sound effects here. He admits that he feels like, in retrospect, he was a little heavy with the reverb on some of it, but there's something about the way that the sound effects play through the bird calls, or the kind of the flutter of wings, and just the kind of the creepy sounds in the house, just the way things, the echo and reverb, and kind of, she doesn't know where things are coming from, and she doesn't know if things are really there. The sound works so well here. And all I could think about as I was hearing all the really unique sound effects here that really lent to that haunted atmosphere, all I could think about was Village of the Damned, and your comments about that, about how they could have done a lot with the sound effects in that film.
There you go. I feel like I just should get a medal.
Winner.
So I think you're right. I love the sound. I also love the light. And so much of the whole sort of the oeuvre, right? The whole mood of these films in particular is built on how well they handle light and shadow. And this film, I thought, was done exceptionally well. There are some sequences with some enormously complex lighting setups, where, I found myself pausing it and staring at these single frames of her, Deborah Kerr, on a stairway, holding the candelabra, looking back over her shoulder, and there's light coming in from the moonlight at the top of the stair, and it's cascading down over the armrail of the stair. You know logically that there would be light on the wall behind her, but the wall has been taken to black. And I would put just sort of a radial mask in there, or a gradient mask in there, and I would do it in post, and it would be fine. But that is not what it looks like. They have really strategically lit each of these sequences in this fantastically gorgeous set that I thought was really well atmosphered. Don't you think? I mean...
Yeah, no, Freddie Francis, the cinematographer, did just a stunning job with this. I mean, to the point where in the exteriors, he would paint some trees to make them have more light or less light. I mean, he was that specific with some of this. For the candle sequences when she's walking around the house, he wanted to light those with candle as much as he could, and he actually had them make these candles with 4 wicks, so he would have these huge flames. And they still would have some people with lights on the sides of the frame who would on dimmer switches, so as she would walk by, the light would come up and then down to kind of help illuminate her. And he and Jack Clayton really were initially fighting to shoot this. They wanted it because they wanted to keep that atmospheric sense tight. They wanted to shoot this the regular, at the time, kind of the British standard aspect ratio, which was like 1.66 to 1. And 20th Century Fox had just kind of come out with the CinemaScope. They'd patented it and everything. And so everything that they made had to be CinemaScope. And they told them, you have to do the CinemaScope or else. And they finally relented. And one of the things that Francis came up with to kind of help with that is he would create these tunnels of light. So when the scenes were really dark in the house, he would put these filters on the lenses that he had painted the edges, and so they would kind of drop off to black. And so as you see these scenes, you can see when the vignetting is happening, because it just looks so much darker on the edges of frame. And they would create what he would call like kind of tunnels of light, especially when it's really dark at night. You can tell that it's really almost like a 1.66 aspect ratio shot. There's just so much that gets dropped off to black. And it created such a really interesting look all the way through with the way that he was playing with the light. I thought it was just absolutely fascinating. This was at a time, because these lenses were brand new, where it was a very bulky thing. And so I think that was another thing that they were kind of hesitant to shoot with CinemaScope, even though they had to. The CinemaScope lenses at the time, my understanding is that they actually had 2 focal places, 2 focal points on the actual lens that the camera team had to operate in order to keep things in focus. And it just sounds like you had to focus them separately, which sounds just horribly difficult.
Horrible.
Yeah. It's like, gosh, how did they do that? And the interesting thing with these lenses is that when things were really close to them, and especially toward the edges of the frame, they would actually bloat a little bit more. And so some interesting shots when you would have one like the wonderful wonderful maid, Mrs. Gross, played by Megs Jenkins, when she would be like all the way up on the front left side of frame and Miss Giddens all the way in the back right or something like that. Mrs. Gross's face would be a little more bloated because she was that much closer to the lens. So it did have some of that distortion in there. But, I still think that they worked it brilliantly throughout to create great framing shots of somebody really close and somebody really far, or the vignetting, or just the way that they constantly were working it. It's just brilliant.
And to your point, man, they use that deep focus all over the place.
Oh, yes. It's everywhere.
It is everywhere, and it was great, and it's amazing just how well that particular technique lends itself to making children scarier. Right?
Yes. Absolutely.
One more thing on the candles, because obviously they're using real candles. Was that not a particularly horrifying thing to watch as people would get scared and run with a candelabra in and out of these rooms and up and down stairs? Like that whole experience to me was really difficult just to watch.
They're going to set themselves on fire.
They are going to set themselves on fire. Something is going to light on fire. Nothing ever did, but it should have by all rights.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are huge flames. I mean, like 4-inch high flames coming off of those things.
It was not good.
No. Pretty scary.
All right.
Random tidbit of information. Megs Jenkins, who I said did play Mrs. Gross, also played Mrs. Gross again in 1974 in the Turn of the Screw TV movie. How interesting is that?
There you go. We already talked about a little bit about the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say anything else about more about the music? Georges Auric?
I thought it was very interesting, very moody music. Georges Auric put together. It's very haunting. It lends itself to the film quite well, I think. I just can't get past the song, though. I mean, I think the music is great. I think it works really effectively in this film, but it's that song, the Willow Whaley, that burns into my brain.
We have talked about him before. He did the Lavender Hill Mob.
Oh, well, there you go.
There you go. Which was very different in tone.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Very different in tone.
But I found it really a terrific score. I really enjoyed it, even above and beyond the song. I thought it was as you said, it was wonderfully moody and really helped to draw me into the experience, the haunting experience of this. And I did not even watch it in the dark, as you instructed me to do.
Oh, you should have.
I know, I should have. I failed.
Oh, man.
Anybody else on your list?
I just think that Jack Clayton is a very interesting director here. He apparently never knew who his father was. It was kind of a mystery for him growing up. So there was a little more of an attachment to any story that involved kind of kids or fatherless kids and stuff like that. So I think he really kind of connected with this story. And I think he does a great job with it here. I haven't seen much of his. In fact, I don't know. I know Room at the Top was his first big film. I never saw that, and I never fully watched the version of The Great Gatsby with Robert Redford. Although, like I said, I'm doing that Robert Redford series, so I'll be seeing that at some point. I guess Something Wicked This Way Comes is probably the only other thing of his that I've seen. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of director credits, but
he doesn't. But apparently, did you catch this on Wikipedia? Apparently, he turned down Alien.
Interesting.
I would not have expected that.
Well, he is an interesting a guy who's been in the world of film, and I think he's just one of those guys who didn't really start as a director. I think he kind of came up actually working, I believe, doing some stuff with John Huston and with cinematographer Jack Cardiff, who we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. And so he then moved into working as a director and did some films. So, yeah.
Something Wicked This Way Comes. That let's see, when did that come out? That was
It's like 86, I think.
83.
Oh, wow.
April 29th, 1983. That was the scariest thing I had ever seen at the time. I was terrified by that.
I didn't see it at the time it came out, but I do remember being pretty creeped out by it when I finally did see it. And then I watched it again recently, and I was pretty disappointed.
I'm glad I haven't. I'm glad I have not seen it because I would be disappointed. But wow.
Yeah.
I was scared at that thing.
Yeah, it's a creepy, creepy film.
All right.
That's one that may be worth a remake.
Yeah, probably.
You know.
That and Crawl.
Yeah, there you
go. Let's see. Anything else we want to talk about before we do the numbers?
I just wanted to say that I really enjoy Michael Redgrave in his brief bit as the uncle. Yeah, very brief. But he works really well because he's very memorable in the role. There's something about the way that he performs it and his face and everything that you remember him. Like he's stuck in your head for the film, I think.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think this is that scene would be the only scene that I have a problem with in the script. Mm-hmm. Not a fault of his. But I find, and again, this may be just a sign that it's dated. This is the part of the story that's dated to me, which is his adamance that he is not involved in the lives of these children. And it's not even so much that he is abdicating his role as their uncle, right? He's their blood uncle, but not familial uncle. It's just the way he says it, the number of times he repeats it, the way he burns it into her head. I do not want you ever to talk to me about these children. That kind of language and the delivery I found was so over the top. Like that was the piece that I just was like, I hope it gets better from here.
And luckily it does.
It gets a lot better from there.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. That is kind of a weaker part of the film. But it still is something that I can kind of buy into, especially because it's just such a short beginning. The interesting thing that is why I brought him up, though, is that Jack Clayton initially offered the part to Cary Grant, of all people, and which would have been very strange to see Cary Grant in the film.
Yes.
And Cary Grant expressed a little interest, but he said only if the uncle gets to come back in the end and have a little bit more kind of a last scene in there, kind of showing his resolution to help the children at the end or something like that, which sounded absurd. And of course, Jack Clayton was smart enough to go, yeah, it's probably not going to actually work out if we do that. So he said at the time, which was the early 60s, which was really a big peak of Cary Grant's, he said he was probably the only person out there who actually actively turned Cary down for one of the roles in a film.
I think this is an interesting film. I came across this passage from Lawrence Raw writing about Hollywoodizing Henry James. Did you come across this particular?
No, I didn't see that one.
Bit of writing on Jack Clayton's The Innocents, and I just want to read this bit because I think this is interesting. It comes at a point where I think we were witnessing a transformation in Hollywood. He says, I do not think that sufficient critical attention has been paid to the socio-historical context in which the film was created. I suggest that The Innocents should be approached as an example of the process of vertical disintegration at work, with a major Hollywood studio being responsible for the distribution and financing of a film undertaken by an independent company. While this apparently gave producers and directors more freedom to develop their own projects, in reality, the new system offered the studios a chance to cut production costs, which were now borne by the independents, while retaining overall control over financing, casting, and distribution. Jack Clayton was only offered the chance to direct and produce The Innocents. Isn't that, I mean, that sort of gets to what we were talking about. We've been talking about this transition out of the Hollywood, the studio model, right?
Right, the studio system.
Right,
yeah. The
studio system. And this film is, appears to be a bit of a milestone in this vertical disintegration, where we now have an independent studio that produces, bears the brunt of the production, and then 20th Century Fox comes in, buys the rights to it, and distributes it.
That's very interesting.
Don't you think?
Yeah, it is. It really is.
I wonder, it makes me, I wish I had read this before I watched the film. It makes me want to watch it again with that in mind, particularly when you look at costs. I'm looking forward to hearing what you uncovered around the money.
This film, it had a hard time. It was critically received really well when it opened in 1961. But it didn't completely click with an audience. It cost about $1.2 million to make U.S. dollars at the time, which adjusted is about $9.4 million. And in the end, it ended up making about $1.2 million. And adjusted, which is adjusted about 9.3. It made just slightly less. And it's funny because the profit per finished minute ended up being, it lost about $48 per finished minute. And then adjusted that's about $375 per finished minute. So and now, of course, this doesn't include any prints and advertising, anything like that. And I'm sure there's other figures that might figure into this, but still, it just goes to show that it found enough of an audience of people to watch it, but not quite to actually be a success. And it wasn't until like the last 10 years when this film really all of a sudden had a kind of a resurgence and people started actively seeking it out. I mean, Criterion just released a beautiful, beautiful Blu-ray of it just in the last couple months. It really just changes the way you see so many of the wonderful images throughout the film. And it's just gorgeous. And, but up until the last 10 years or so, it was just kind of, largely forgotten. And so it's great that people are finding this again, because it certainly deserves to not be in the negative column on our adjusted profit per finished minute.
That's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should probably rank it.
Let's do it.
All right, head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel, everybody, and you should set up an account and then log into that account and friend us, The Next Reel. And then you're going to start ranking movies, and you're going to rank all the movies that we have ranked and see how your stack rankings match up with our stack rankings. And let's hope this one breaks that top 100.
I sure hope so. You know, I love it. So, The Innocents or Kind Hearts and Coronets?
The Innocents.
Absolutely. The Innocents or Sleepless in Seattle?
I would say The Innocents on this one.
Oh, boy.
Which means if it doesn't go any higher than this, it's on you.
It's on me. Oh, my. I'm going to say The Innocents.
Ooh, I just got the chills.
It's like you saw the ghost of Quint outside your window. The Innocents or Fight Club, Pete?
You know, I can't do it.
I can't either. So Fight Club wins that one. The Innocents or The Descent?
Huh.
I'm going to say The Innocents.
Yeah, I think I will too.
The mood really is just creepy. The Innocents or Misery? We're getting some good little these are
good matchups.
Yeah.
I'm going to say The Innocents against Misery for sure.
I'm a little torn, but I am going to say The Innocents. The Innocents or Sweet Smell of Success? I'm saying The Innocents.
Yeah, The
here.
Innocents. Yeah.
The Innocents or Ace in the Hole? I love me some Ace in the Hole.
Yeah. Boy, I'm really torn. Is that you picking Ace in the Hole?
No, I'm a little torn myself.
I feel like I haven't seen it enough times to maybe judge this one. I think Innocents. I think The Innocents. That's what I'm going to say. The Innocents.
You're
That's
saying
it.
The Innocents.
I'm saying it.
I feel like I'm going to say Ace in the Hole, but I'm flip-flopping a little bit. So if you're The Innocents, I'll go with The Innocents.
I'm The Innocents, yeah.
All right, I'll flip back over to The Innocents. The Innocents, Kramer versus Kramer.
The Innocents.
Awfully good stuff going on in Kramer versus Kramer.
The Innocents.
Okay. All right, The Innocents, number 27.
With a bullet.
27 out of 207. Yes, it was only stopped by Fight Club.
As It should be.
It's an excellent, excellent film. I'm so thrilled to have put it on our list of films that we've talked about. I just absolutely love it. It's always a great one to watch around Halloween. So hopefully our listeners enjoy it too.
I hope so too. I think that this film so beautifully articulates that sense. I think you said it, right? That sense of this just terrible horror that is present but not obvious. And I think that and the ambiguity of of the manifestation of that horror is really terrific. We didn't talk about the end, the death of Miles, which is I think a seminal point in the film, that the way he dies with the he just sort of drops dead in the middle of the garden and in her arms. I thought that was just a really beautiful way to wrap up the film, and who knows what happens to her as a result of it. I just feel like it was really hauntingly articulated. So this was a great pick, Andy. I am so glad you put it on the list, and I'm really glad it's in my collection.
I am so glad that you enjoyed it, because I get so nervous when it's something I really like, and then I show you, and you're like, I hated it.
No, you were right on this one.
Well, good. Yes.
If the worst thing I can say about it is that it's no Fight Club, that's a win.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. What's your Letterboxd rating for this one?
Gosh, are you a 5-star on this one?
I give it 4.5, and I think it's because there's some elements right at the beginning that stumble a little bit for me.
That was it. I was going to give it a 4 because that's kind of where I am on the whole introduction to the conceit.
Yeah. Right.
So.
Okay. Well, I think that's fair. Did you know there was a prequel made in 1971?
I did not know that.
Yeah, with Marlon Brando.
Oh.
Called The Nightcomers.
I don't know of this one.
Now it's technically a prequel to the novel, so I don't know. I don't know if it ties into. I mean, it's essentially the same story, but I kind of curious to see it now.
Yeah.
Marlon Brando plays Peter Quint.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is it the story of Peter Quint and the boy?
And Miss Jessel. Yeah, recently orphaned, Flora and Miles are abandoned by their new guardian and entrusted to the care of housekeeper Mrs. Gross, governess Miss Jessel, and Peter Quint, the former valet and now gardener. With only these 3 adults for company, the children live an isolated life in the sprawling country manor estate. The children are particularly fascinated by Peter Quint due to his eclectic knowledge and engaging stories and willingness to entertain them. With this captive audience, Quint doses out his strange philosophies on love and death.
Oh, I feel like we should see
Miss
that.
Jessel. Yeah, it's very interesting. I am going to have to add this to my list of things to watch. Wonder if it's any good.
Where are we going next week? We're going to wrap up our
big
children, horrible children extravaganza.
That's right. We're wrapping up the Naughty Children series with Stephen King's Children of the Corn, the 1984 version.
I'm glad you specified.
Yes, because there was that remake that was a couple years ago, and I didn't hear anything good about that one.
No,
so
I didn't either. But I didn't know. I thought maybe if it was great, this would be one that Andy would recommend. Trying to be an outlier.
Yeah, I'll be curious to watch Children of the Corn again. It's one I'd only seen recently, so I'm kind of curious to revisit it. See what I think of it this time.
I have not seen it in years and years.
Yeah.
So I have very precious little memory of it. The only thing I really remember is the hand in the blender.
I don't
that was
even
in
remember
that movie,
that.
right?
I don't know. I don't even remember, and I just watched it like a year or so ago.
I hope it was in that movie. I really do.
I hope so too. I want to see a hand in the blender. I know there was one in Goonies. Close.
Oh, that wasn't it. No, this was a thing. Okay. Well, maybe I only saw the remake. We shall see next week. I gotta go to bed.
All right, I'm gonna go up to my roof and stroke my pigeons.
Andy, I'm going to read a part of one, but I'm reading it because the punchline comes in one of the responses over on
Excellent.
Amazon. This is a one-stale. One stale? It's a 1 star. And the comment is not worth watching. This movie just does not deliver. The story makes no sense, and the ending is awful. The children don't act like any children would act under similar circumstances. What? The adults don't either. When given reasonable courses of action, the character played by Miss Carr rejects them in favor of outlandish actions. As the person with some rationality and theory and control, Miss Carr's character acts very irrational and as someone without control. My wife believes the main adult character played by Miss Carr is nuts to start with, and that may explain the rest of the film because the entire story is told from her point of view. But that isn't made clear at any point. And if she was irrational to start with, it isn't brought out. If she becomes irrational during the movie, it isn't clear what might have brought on this breakdown. I do not recommend this film. It is not worth watching. The first comment, bless you, Judy Fryer, is, this film was supposed to be written for adults. Perhaps you should stick to movies for children.
I love it.
That's what I got. What's yours?
Well, Brian Cabana gave it 1 star and said, holy crap! I'm watching this film now. It's on TCM. What a badly acted, and by the way, there's commas all through this. Like, there's no periods. It's just commas. I'm watching this film now. It's on TCM. What a badly acted, I suppose badly written, hence the bad acting. The children especially, lousy actors. The girls scream, cry, on and on for what seemed like 20 minutes. Miss Carr, eyes wide open, jaws askew, like she's going to throw up. Is good acting by some standards. If the music is supposed to be scary, it's not. With that incessant piano tinkling and drum beats and the alien movie music, it's about as scary as Casper the Friendly Ghost.
What?
Yes, Brian Cabana apparently just spewed whatever came into his head as he watched the film.
He did not like that film. Do you know, some nights I think, gosh, what are we doing? And then some nights, Amazon, you deliver.
It is hard to believe we have been having in-depth conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you, and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
Season 5 had some great adaptations, like our Meryl Streep Oscar-nominated performances series. We covered adaptations like Kramer vs. Kramer, Sophie's Choice, and The French Lieutenant's Woman.
It's a real Sophie's Choice between those books. You see what I did there?
Yeah. And I don't think it's quite at the level of a real Sophie's Choice.
We also did Snowpiercer for our Bong Joon-ho series, adapted from the French graphic novel Le Transpersonnage. Man, I love that movie.
We had our 2-part 1939 series that included adaptations like Gone with the Wind, Ninotchka, The Women, and The Hound of the Baskervilles.
A number of those 1939 movies, like Goodbye, Mr. Chips, also tied into our recent 1940 Academy Award Best Picture nominee series.
Our naughty children horror series had creepy adaptations like The Bad Seed, Village of the Damned, The Innocents, and Children of the Corn.
For our Hayao Miyazaki series, we talked about his take on Lupin III with The Castle of Cagliostro, plus his own The Wind Rises.
Some great listener choice picks too, Viridiana and The Great Escape.
And for our David Mamet Wright series, The Verdict, The Untouchables, and Glengarry Glen Ross.
Plus, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang from our Shane Black series, adapted from Brett Halliday's novel, Bodies Are Where You Find Them.
Dive into the sources for all of these at thenextreel.com/originals.
Every book you buy helps support the show. Check out thenextreel.com/originals today and find your next read.